Tim's American Beauty was made by Robust Tools, America's premier lathe manufacturer. Quality hardened tool rests and live centers too. Robust. Built to turn wood. Enjoyed for a lifetime.
Thompson Lathe Tools. Welcome to a new level of professional wood-turning tools. Made by a wood turner, for wood turners. Today's project, wait a minute, that just creeps me out. Today's project is a really festive one, and it's great for the holidays. It's an LED Christmas tree, and it involves several parts. So this is a real project, lots of things to do, and there's actually measurement in this because it's not close enough this time. You gotta stay with your measurements, as I said. So we're gonna be working with 2-inch thick dried maple, hard maple, and you're gonna need a 2-inch disc, a 3.5-inch disc, and a 5-inch disc. And then you're going to need about a 3-inch long, 1.5-inch square piece of babinga. You're going to need a cutoff of cocobolo. It's about 2.5 inches wide. And then you're going to need one more disc of maple. That's going to help us put it all together. Now, one thing I want to say right off the bat, we are using a product called Tiny Lights. Now, we have a store in town, and you can find it online called Hobby Lobby, but you probably can find this in most stores. And the coolest thing about these lights is they're not fat like the ones that you put on your house or on your tree that are wider. They're really thin and narrow. So that way when we drill a hole, these fit in there nicely, and they actually fit kind of snugly so they hold themselves in place. And that's the only way we can get that all to fit in there because, let me show you how this goes together. I did not glue this together just so you could see the construction. Cable runs through everything, so there's quite a bit of stuff going on the inside of this. So that's why you need the little bitty lights that stick through the hole so you don't take up a lot of room with a big thick cable and all that stuff, and it looks beautiful. You can glue that together if you want to when you make it. That's no problem because they're LEDs. They'll probably never burn out. Only thing you'll have to replace is the batteries, and that would be, 170 hours I think per set of batteries on it. Again, these are called Tiny Lights. Now, you're watching this as a video, so you can replay this as many times as you want to find out what type of lights they are. Don't email me, they're right here, Tiny Lights. So anyway, let's get to turning and get to the lathe. Now I've got the 2-inch piece mounted, and one thing, when you cut your blanks out on the bandsaw, make sure that you mark the top of the blank. The reason for this is you want to keep the grain orientation the same all the way through, so everything looks right. You don't want it flipped, it'll look a little weird. So everything's going to mount this way with the top going that way. So the first step we're going to do with this little 2-inch piece is I'm just going to rough it out really quickly. I'm using a bowl gouge because the wood's in bowl grain orientation, so I have end grain coming at me. So I want to make sure that I'm using the right tool. If I used a roughing gouge, it would rip out the grain like crazy. And you want to be very careful not to take off too much wood because the measurements on this are very, very important. Hear that? That means I'm not quite rounded out. Take another sliver off. Now that feels pretty solid. Now the next step I want to do on this is I'm going to take my parting tool and my calipers, which I have set for 1.5 inches because we need to make a tenon on this end. Normally you see me making tenons on this end, and well, when I was doing this project I started doing them on this end, so that's why I'm over here. Nothing special, but it will be important later on. Ooh, that's a nice sound. Anyway, so go down here till it comes to 1.5 inches right there. Good. Now, I want to take, normally I would use my gouge that I have at an angle to do the angle on the tenon like that, but I can't do that, right? So I'm gonna go to my skew and bring the skew in like so. Now, if you have a skew, you can use it for the tenon on either end you like. I just like using that other tool because it's a little thicker and heavier. So there. Now I've got my perfect little tenon on there. I'm going to take this off and we're going to start turning the middle blank. Okay, I've got the second blank on here. I've rounded it out and I put a 1-inch tenon on this end. Why 1 inch and not 1.5 inch like the 2-inch piece? Well, we're running into a problem here. I didn't glue this together so I can show you how I built it. But anyway, if we put a 1.5 inch tenon on this end, it would be as wide as this. So we have to do a 1-inch tenon so we have the overlap, right? This is the only piece that gives us problems. This one gets wider so we can make a nice big fat tenon on that. But so we're going with a 1-inch tenon there. But now, how do we get the taper? Well, I did the math and did all the stuff, so you don't have to worry about it now. If you do the measurements I'm saying, you'll be fine. We're going to come out about 1/8 of an inch from that tenon now. So we're going to make a circle that is about 1¼ inches, like so. And it might be hard to see, but basically what I want to do is come in here and angle the wood to that mark right there. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my bowl gouge again. It is up here. And I'm just going to start making a straight cut. This is pretty cool because you don't have to do a curve or anything. You just start working your way into that mark. Now this is hard maple, so it cuts beautifully. But hey, Tim, you're turning this like it's a bowl. Aren't you going against the grain? Yes, I am. I'm going downhill, and that's tearing the grain just a little bit. Now hard maple is really forgiving, and if my tool is really sharp, I shouldn't have any problems. But the reason I'm doing that is it's really hard to come over here and try to come out on such a small piece like this. So I'm going to take the risk of tearing some grain for the first few cuts. And once I get it where I want it, then I'm going to show you how I can smooth it out. I got to quit opening my mouth when I talk. So, okay, I'm going to do a cleaning cut right here, and I'm almost to that mark. Okay, now I'm right on my edge, and I'm taking a very light, nice, slow cut to help minimize tearing out the grain. Again, you have a sharp tool, oops, came off a little bit, so just go back, let it pick up. If you have a sharp tool, it works really great. If you don't, you'll get a lot of tear out. Now, I'm missing my line here a little bit. I'm not going to go all the way back to the beginning because I already got the edge set, so I'm just going to let that bevel realign me and get me in where I need to be. There we go. Let's stop it real quick and look at the grain. And it looks really, really good. This is end grain though, so if you have any flaws in there at all, they're almost impossible to sand out. So what I want to do now is turn this on. I'm going to take the tool like this and hold it at an extreme angle. And now I'm going to take it and go back uphill with the right direction like so. So it's on my hip, or on my leg actually. So I'm just going to touch that top bit right there. And you're going to see little slivers of wood coming off. See those tiny fine shavings dropping off? That's a little heavier cut there. I can lighten it up even more than that. So watch these little whiskers of wood come off. There we go. Little whispers. What that does is now I'm making a cut with the grain, and it gives me a very, very smooth surface, so it's going to be a whole lot easier to sand. And speaking of sanding, I want to sand this next. Now, since we're sanding end grain, you can't do it by hand. It just isn't going to work. So I'm going to be using a drill with a sanding pad on there, and it's got Velcro, and this is Abranet, which is a mesh sanding disc, which is really nice. Starting with 80 grit. Let me plug this in here. Got my little outlet right there. Now you turn the lathe on, you slow the speed way down. Probably about 500 RPM max. This is variable speed. It can go really, really fast or really slow, and I like to go about halfway. See the lines on there right now, you can see those. Now, I just go about half speed and I move back and forth, and you can see the lines are starting to disappear. By having a spinning disc and a spinning piece of wood, it cuts the end grain much more efficiently. Seems like overkill getting a drill out for a small piece of wood like this, but believe me, it saves you a lot of work. And when you stop this, if you see any torn grain, which I don't see right now, you can actually cheat a little bit, take this and just touch it up a little bit. You'll be a little bit out of round, but no one will ever know. But anyway, I'm going to work my way through 400 grit on this. Then we're going to be moving on to the third blank, the bottom part of the tree. Okay, I've mounted the third piece and I've been working on it. There are two important measurements with it. Now I did make a tenon that is 1.5, whoops, got a little catch there, 1.5 inches wide. And the line I drew on here is 2 1/4 inches. So that is the right measurement to get your tapers right and everything else. And all I'm doing is clearing out the wood. And one little thing I just did is I moved my tool rest, and it's actually equal distance from that mark and from the edge, so I just follow the tool rest and I'll get my perfect line as I go. It is hard maple and dried out, so if you take too big of a cut like I did a second ago, you get a little bit of a catch. And I am going down, uphill, downhill again, but I'll do the same pull cut to clean it up, sand it, and then we take it off the lathe and we go back to the first piece, the very top of the tree. Now I am drilling a 5/32 inch wide hole all the way through this blank. Stop that squealing and do this the easy way. And that is because that's the size that the light bulbs, hole that the light bulbs fit in, which is really handy. Now I need to get this off the lathe because I'm going to do some end grain turning and I don't want to stick my elbow into that, which would be really painful. So the tenon on my second piece has to jam fit into a hole on this part, right? So I've already taken my calipers and gotten the diameter of that. So we'll turn this back on, pick up the speed a little bit, and I'm going to touch this end and try to match that mark up there. See, I'm a little bit short, a little bit more. Okay, now you can see that that line's matching up with that, so that's the diameter of my tenon. So I need to make a hole that size. So let's move this all the way over here. Bring it here. Now, this is like turning a bowl, so you can use bolt turning techniques. Oops, don't go away. There we go. But I'm going to grab my little bitty bowl gouge to help me out because this is a tight area and you need as much room as you can get. Now, pick the speed back up. And see, that's a little too high on the tool rest. So I'm going to bring it down just a tick. There we go, like so. Okay. So I'm going to come back here. And I'm just going to whittle the wood away. Now we're going to be making a shape, a point here, so I don't want to go really deep because if I go too deep, then the walls will be really thin. You can't have thin walls on this project because you need about a 1/2 inch of thickness for the lights to go in and to hang on. So there is my mark. I'm going to push straight in on that. I'm going to turn this off. Now bring this up and see if it fits. And when I was talking about jam fit, see, that's tight. That's nice jam fit. I don't want it to be that tight in real life when I'm done because I've got to assemble this thing and put it together. And if you want to glue it together, that's fine. But if you want to take it apart, then you want to have a little bit of forgiveness with the wood here. So I'm just going to take a little bit more off. Let me do something here real quick. Slide the tool rest more that way. I was about ready to run off that end there. So, there we go. I'm just taking a sliver of wood there. Now, you hear that vibration or that noise? That is caused by vibration because that little bitty tool's hanging out that far. To avoid that now, you can actually come up with a easy wood scraper like this little bitty round tip. And there, I'm right on center, which works good. Oops. No, there's a bubble there, so I got to raise it up. Check again. Okay, there's my bubble. I'm good. Now I just want to hollow this out just a little bit because I need a little space in there so I can get the lights in there. I'm getting a little vibration. Let me stop this. I probably didn't tighten this down as good as I should have. I got really close to the diameter on my tenon. There we go. That's good. So I didn't have a lot of room to spare. So anyway, I'm going to get this hollowed out just a little bit more, and then we're going to work on the sides and taper the top of the tree. Now, I've made a mark 1.5 inches from the bottom here because we have to stagger our tree. And sound right, but you know what I mean. In other words, this piece can't be 2 inches, this 2 inches, and this 2 inches. It won't look right. So this has to be shorter, this has to be a little bit taller, and then this has to be the big tall one, right? So we're taking a little bit off these two to make them look smaller and a little more symmetrical. Anyway, I'm gonna power this up, and all I'm gonna do is start making my taper in like I did on number 2 blank and number 3 blank. And I'm going to get this down all the way and then I'll part it off. And that's the fun part. But I'll get this angled down and leave about 1/4 inch of wood, and then I will sand it, and then I'll part it off. And there's not a lot of room here with the chuck, so just want to be careful and not get too excited and start turning the chuck.
Tim's American Beauty was made by Robust Tools, America's premier lathe manufacturer. Quality hardened tool rests and live centers too. Robust. Built to turn wood. Enjoyed for a lifetime.
Thompson Lathe Tools. Welcome to a new level of professional wood-turning tools. Made by a wood turner, for wood turners.